Welcome to our first podcast of 2025, and what a show we've got coming up for you this time. We've got a very, very special guest. We've got the Mayor of Middlesbrough, Cooke. He's going to be joining us a little bit later on. He's going to be talking all about elections, being a leader, his journey to becoming the mayor, development and improvements in Middlesbrough, and of course, a whole host of questions that you guys have put forward to ask him. So that's very exciting. As ever, I'm joined by our wonderful president.
So far we had induction weeks, which was
always a good chance to see new students. Yeah, you get involved. Did you do that on your own, or did you do it with the other presidents?
I did it on my own because my colleagues are away.
As if you got a blessing to do that on your own, you horrible people. I'm joking.
I'm on leave on those days.
Any excuse? Yeah, too busy having a holiday because Christmas wasn't big enough time off. That's right. Yeah.
I need more than Christmas, so I took more leaves. Thank you for covering me.
So yeah, you doing your inductions.
Yeah, it was a really nice time getting to meet students, getting to do the inductions. It was lovely. Yeah. And then Student Spotting Students is back on again.
Fantastic.
Starting this Tuesday. We started this Tuesday. Was our first session. We watched a movie, had a bit of a movie night, just a bit of cozy time
I like
together.
that, it's good. Whereabouts did they do Student Spotting Students?
So it's first floor in the Student Union in the studio.
On Tuesday?
Every Tuesday from 4:30 p.m.
Fantastic opportunity to meet like-minded people, have a bit of a chillax, watch some TV, movies, that kind of
definitely
stuff.
A chill session. Students need a chance to, chill, relax in a really relaxed environment. I felt like putting a structure so it might make it a bit of class, like lectures and whatnot. So the idea is come in, grab a cup of coffee, biscuits, play some games, and then we get to talking if they want to. If not, just relax.
So it's kind of an off the books kind of session, so that there's no real structure, but in the right way, so that people don't feel there's a timetable to adhere to. Because you're right, with that much pressure from your studies, especially as you're going into semester 2, for your master's students, for your third years, for anybody really, things can get a little bit more intense in semester 2. The new university feeling is kind of, by semester 1, it's kind of waned a little bit. I mean, we have got the new recruits like you mentioned, but obviously there's a lot of other pressure for other people in semester 2. That sounds really good. So what are your big plans and priorities for this semester? What have you got coming up in terms of over the next few months? Because it always feels like a short semester, this one, doesn't it, as well?
Yeah. So we've got some things planned for the International Women's Day.
Great.
We've got we're working on some stuff looking at deposits, because we have found out that students were complaining about not getting their deposits back last year. So working on doing a campaign around that to kind of educate students and make sure that they're safe and look at ways to avoid not getting back deposits as well.
Harsha, we're going to move on to you. What's been going on with you in semester 2, other than your extended holiday after Christmas, which you've already mentioned?
Yeah, sorry for not being in the elections, Blessing. Thanks for covering me. My priorities and campaigns so far, continuing the same campaigns the last year, introducing some other new campaigns. When it comes to the last year campaigns, academic and attendance outreach session has been started last week.
Very good.
Which is this week, which is going very good, along with the SUS team. And apart from that, I am doing different little bit Meet the President education monthly ones, which is online. Any student can pop in. Like they can ask me questions, or
is it on Teams? Is that what they're doing?
It's on the Teams.
Fantastic.
Yeah, the dates are yet to be out, but we will let you know whenever the dates are. I'm going to stream it.
You're going to stream it so anybody can dial into it and have a look at it and just get involved with it. Yeah. And it gives some people an opportunity to speak to you directly as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which is really good.
Yeah.
And obviously if it's on Teams, it means that anybody can do it, so that you're not limited by the fact that you have to be on campus. Or you mentioned some of the other campaigns there. Did you say one of them is about academic regulations, or are you doing that around campus?
Yeah, it is doing around the campus in different buildings, like a library, a student life, student union, and some other parts in the university, along with the SUS team. It's mainly focused on about how important is academics, how to do well in the academics and attendance, maintain proper attendance, how important to tap the ID card, and how important to go for the classes and register your attendance.
So it's about being a good student, about how to ensure that everything goes well and that you're all kind of prepared and know what you're doing to make sure you don't get caught by anything. Because we do often hear that students, particularly you mentioned there about making sure you're tapping in your cards when you're entering buildings and when you're signing in to do your actual lectures and things. Because obviously if you just do it and the university doesn't know you've done it, that can cause problems, can't it? So it's kind of trying to nip that in the bud to make sure your attendance is exactly where it needs to be.
And other thing, I'm It's going to start from this month. Like I'm bringing some guest speakers to speak with the students.
Fantastic.
Like it's going to all roll from end of February last week.
Ebubechi, how are you?
I'm trying to get better.
Trying to get better. You're sounding a little bit. Have you got a bit of that flu kind of thing going around? I mean, there is a lot of it going around, isn't there?
It's going and coming. When I want to speak, it just comes to attack my voice.
All right. Okay. Well, hopefully we'll not put too much strain on you. But how are things going for you in semester 2? What's going on?
It's going well. We just started. So from the international side, there is a concern, that came to me, which has to do with the culture of Teesside, which is also linked with being a good student and also part of the academic campaign. But now it has to do with students understanding the fact that there are different university cultures from where they come from, and what is expected here as a culture they need to abide by and work with. So without understanding that there are certain things they need to do, then there is a problem. So far, so good. I've been doing the little that I can do to make them understand that it's quite important for everyone to tap his card, as he said, and not to follow your friends in the group of friends. And when one person taps, everybody, goes in, It's important that you know how to report. And then for those who came in late, the international students who came in late, trying to bring them to understand the fact that they need to register the attendance missed, like from when school resumed to when they got into the UK and started their registration. So that period can be covered. So and then the school and the department understands why they actually resumed this time, and then the reason for them missing those classes. And also we'll have the International Women's Day coming up, which we've started working in line. So Blessing is also working in that aspect with me. So we're getting some stalls coming in where we're going to have willing females who are willing to do the smell test, to do other feminine tests that has to do with the body and everything. So we're getting a lot of interest from bodies to come putting the stalls, and also we are going to have a 1-hour talk.
Right.
Yeah, so for women, and then it's just encouraging the women. We're working together with the gender focus group.
Great.
Yeah, on that, and then they're willing to talk to the students, trying to encourage them. Some of them will have families, young ladies, and trying to make them understand that they are women, and then little things that they can use to encourage them in their day-to-day life.
Thank you very much for that. One thing that we do need to talk about, guys, and this is the biggest thing, we have got the mayor coming in very, very soon. Obviously, very big into elections, and that's a nice little tangent into the thing that we really do need to talk about. Semester 2 is a very, very important month for presidents. Officers, some student unions call them elected representatives, whatever you want to call it, but you guys are the presidents. So let's talk about elections, because they are coming up and there's a lot of information. What's going on with the elections? So am I right in thinking that not all of you are re-going for them this year? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at Blessing and Harsha. Yeah?
Yeah. You're not rerunning.
You're not rerunning, is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
So do you want to talk to me a little bit about what's your choice to not rerun? Have you got a different focus? Have you decided that you've done what you wanted to do? What's your reason for not rerunning?
So basically it's part of my long-term educational plan. So I've just completed my BSc and then I'll be going on to do my master's, and the idea is to finish everything before 30. So
great. So you're on plan with where you want to be, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Harsha.
My plan is for the complete my studies completely and focus on my career, future employability kind of thing.
So yours is the same again. It's about having that long-term goal and that long-term
goals,
plan to do what you needed to do. You've done this. You've had your term for a year, and then you're going to move on to the next thing. Very exciting.
Yeah, I had a very great experience so far.
I was going to say, did you gain lots of experience?
Yeah.
Is it a valuable thing? Yeah?
Definitely.
Would you encourage other people to go for it?
Yeah.
100%.
Really.
You get to learn a lot more things than you expect in a normal day. You get to experience different things. I know there's the job description for each role, but it goes far more than what the job description says.
So the job description is one thing, but then obviously there's a lot of other things to
There's
that
a lot
as
of
well.
other things.
A lot of experience.
Yeah.
I imagine you've met with some people in the university that you would never have met with.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Had you
Made
done
some
something else?
connections even outside of the university as well. Got to build on so many skills as well.
Yeah.
You know, there's been loads of travel opportunities as well, you know, going down to our London campus, attending various conferences. It's been lovely.
That's
getting
really
to
good.
meet other officers across universities as well.
Yeah, and obviously we've still got you for another 6 months, so that's important. But at
Yeah.
this time, we're encouraging other people to definitely stand to have a look at the elections information. Ebubechi,
Yeah.
so these guys are abandoning you. I'm joking.
I am heartbroken.
So you're going to rerun. You're
Yes,
rerunning
yes.
for the similar role, same role that you're doing at the moment.
Yes, yes.
So what's made you make the decision that you want to rerun? Why have you come to that conclusion?
Okay. First of all, it's a career.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've graduated.
Yes.
Yeah, and then for me, this is a job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So apart from being answering the title President International, it's also a job. Yeah.
Yeah.
So far, so good. I have learned a lot. Those few months being there, a whole lot, and then my idea about so many things has changed.
Yes.
And all thanks to the staffs and our chief exec, Courtesy. Yeah, she knows how to pattern someone in line and make you understand the reason or the purpose of why you are sitting in that position. And so far, I've been able to understand the reason why I'm there. Just like Blessing said, it's a good opportunity, but the duties and the effectiveness is just more than the job description.
Yeah.
So for you to be effective, you need to go an extra mile. And then for you to tell yourself you've achieved a lot is when you see people telling you, oh, thank you. I have been able to get past through this hurdle or through the struggle. And then you see people being happy that what they complained about is being settled. So for me, I think it's a way of building my skills in administration, in leadership, and then trying to channel my path into working with students, and then
So you're drawing everything together, the
Yes.
skills, the experience, and
Yes,
you're taking
yes.
that forward. And obviously you've still got things that you want to do, which is why,
Yes,
like you
please.
said, you want to rerun.
Yes, please.
You know, so best of luck with that as well.
Thank
Obviously, the positions are a paid position. You
Yeah.
get a lot of experience. There's a lot of opportunities for networking,
Yeah.
for being involved. Now, one thing that we always have to say this is, why would you encourage people to vote? Because some people are a bit apolitical. They don't tend to get involved. So what would you say to people that thinking, I don't know, I'm not too sure about voting. Why should they be voting?
One of the reasons I would give would be, you know, for representation. You know, if you want to see someone that looks like you in that role, then you need to vote for someone that looks like you. If you want to see someone that's passionate about a specific subject area that you're passionate about, then you need to vote the person that's passionate about said subject area. I think that's the one.
Yeah, to be involved.
not
If you want to
give?
see change, you want to see
You gotta
somebody
be
with
involved in
passion.
change.
Yeah.
Same for you guys. It's the same kind of thing.
For me, mainly important. Like every student faces different problems. Like if you think a candidate is worth for, like if you have any concern, if this candidate wants, like he can go to person to me all the time. Like he can raise our voices to the university. Yeah, so those kind of person, vote for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you are not interested among any of the other candidates, vote for reopen nomination.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, we didn't touch on that one, but reopen
Well, lovely
nomination,
Ron.
Ron. yeah. Ron is always there.
Yeah.
And that's if no candidate takes your fancy, but you still want to be involved
Yeah.
inside the actual election itself. Now, would you still encourage people to not only vote, but also to run for the positions as well, Ebubechi?
Yeah, I will.
Even though it could put you out of a job if you say
Yeah, I
somebody
will,
goes in, but
yeah.
it's about having that opportunity, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's about having the opportunity, about learning, about making people to realize, you know, this position has actually made us to know that there are certain things in us that we didn't know we could do.
Yeah.
And then we tend to start seeing ourselves manifest in those directions, and then we're doing so really well. Yeah, so I would advise anyone to run for it. If you want to come out for it, do. Yeah. It's democracy within.
It's absolutely, that's it, isn't it? It's a democratic process, and it's all about people voting, whether you're going to be running for it or whether you just want to vote inside it. Make sure you do. I can give you a bit of information. Obviously, if people do want to find out more information about running, if you visit tees-su.org.uk/elections, it's got all the key dates, all the information, videos, downloads, all the links that you need to actually be involved with the actual democratic process. With key dates in mind, nominations are open. Do you guys know when that is off the top of your head?
Yeah.
17th to the 21st.
Yes.
So that's when the nominations are open. So that's really, really soon. We've got to meet the candidates on Thursday, the 27th.
Yeah.
That's the date I was remembering.
That's the day you were. So that's an opportunity for the candidates, the people that are going forward, for students to meet those people. You can ask them questions. You know, you can actually see, is that person the person that I think they are, or do I need to look elsewhere, depending on what they've actually said. The voting takes place on Monday, the 3rd of March.
3rd of March, yeah.
So it's not really that far away, is it, to be honest? It's coming around very, very quickly.
Less than weeks.
Let's say 1 week.
Less than 2-3 weeks.
Less than 3 weeks, and then we'll be there. And of course, all the results come out on Wednesday, the 5th of March. Now, elections are for everybody. It doesn't matter your background. You should consider being a candidate if you want to get involved with your students' union. You want to shape the students' union going forward. And everybody should vote. I'm a big fan that everybody should vote. You can't turn around and criticise a situation
if you don't
don't be part of it. You know, you can't turn around and say they were bad or they were really good. You're not in a position to do that if you've never taken the time to be involved and do it. So I would say to everybody, all students watching this, be a part of it. Shape the future of your students' union and your university by making sure that you're voting or by becoming a candidate. There's a lot to get from it. I think you guys could testify to that. There's a lot to be gained from being a president of Teesside University Students' Union. Okay, so it is now time for the special guest I talked about earlier on. Welcome, Chris Cooke, Mayor of Middlesbrough. Hello there.
Thank you very much.
And what a pleasure it is. Thank you very much for taking the time to come and join us. So, Chris, before we get into anything too deep about anything that's going on in terms of the political aspects, we've obviously talked a little bit about the elections for our presidents, but before we get to that, I just want to talk a little bit about you. So, obviously, you are the Mayor of Middlesbrough. How long have you been in that position
2 years.
2 years?
2 years in May.
2 years in May. Wow, time flies. It goes quick.
Some days.
That's a very good answer. So let's talk a little bit about your backstory. Where have you come from to get to this position? You know, a little bit about you.
So I was a ward councillor for Newport Ward, which is still one of my favourite places on earth.
Right.
You develop a real soft spot for the place once you get to know the people there. Before that, I worked around homelessness, and I used to do sort of early morning interventions where you go out and actually try and find people who are sleeping and then try and get them into support. And then before that, I worked in IT for an incredibly long time. And then my background is I was a care leaver, and I spent time through social services, myself and a sibling, and we had a very chaotic life growing up. And actually, a lot of what I do now is based on trying to ensure that other people have a better outcome from that starting position. So a lot of the things that we'll be doing over the next sort of six to 8 months especially will be around care leaver housing, around making sure that we get housing for everyone as well.
So you've got steps in place to move ahead with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that must have given you a very interesting perspective and a reason to want to enact change. You know, if you've come from the things that you said that it wasn't a great turnout, to get to where you are now, it's a massive success story.
Yeah, it is. And I think actually it's... For a lot of so I also chair the corporate parenting board because as a council we go a step further than just saying that we look after children. It's about actually being a corporate parent. So we are the parent of all the children that are within our care. And that doesn't mean if it's me or any councillor, they are a corporate parent.
So it's like a collective corporate parent. So it's almost like a corporate parent.
Yeah. And
it's funny, the clue's in the title.
Yeah, and it's about taking that role incredibly seriously and making ensuring that we do aim to almost treat them as though they were our children.
Yeah.
So making sure that they go to the right schools, making sure that they get good healthcare, making sure that they have accommodation should be in the very fibre of what we do.
Yeah.
And yeah, if we have to be the sharp elbow of parent, then we should do that as well.
We've all been there
Yeah.
on the receiving end, and to have to get occasionally that's part of being a parent, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is.
I always say this to my children. I love my children, but first and foremost, I'm their parent above everything else. You know, above being their friend, I have to be their parent, and that's sometimes making, as I'm sure you're aware, hard decisions and having to make choices for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you have to be the adult, you have to be the parent in that scenario. I imagine that's quite difficult, especially if it's from a corporate position and you've got that kind of. You've got different people. Are you all singing from the same hymn sheet then? And you said because there's lots of different elements to it. Are you all singing from the same hymn sheet in terms of if you have to deal with a situation or if somebody else had to deal with a situation, is it kind of mandated that you would?
Not yet, but one of the things that we've just done is we've just rewrote our target operating model, and within that it has strong responsibilities around corporate parenting.
Yeah.
So for me, it's also about using the council as a really good vehicle for all sorts of social mobility. So we're a very weird organisation, and I accept that as a caveat. So we are probably one of the only organisations that will have a garage where we service vehicles. We own a farm that actually has children, that has animals and has the ability to create produce. We also have schools and.
You own a farm? Sorry, you own a farm?
Yeah, so Covenham Leisure Farm.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, so that's a council-run facility.
Right.
So actually, the job opportunities that we can offer through apprenticeships are incredibly varied.
I was going to say, so you've got a garage for learning mechanics and I imagine things like that, being able to do repairs. A farm, and what was the other one you said as well?
So we also do stuff around healthy living.
Yeah.
So for example, Cleveland Centre's just had the Liverpool Centre put into it. There's opportunities there around physio, around other aspects of that. So there's a wealth of different opportunities, and actually what we need to make sure is that the children that we have corporate parent responsibility for get access to those opportunities and are able to then thrive.
So it really is trying to set up the children that are care leaves or are in care.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
really want to set them up so they've got the best possible opportunities.
But we have that wider sort of onus for the town to be able to ensure that actually as many people as possible have opportunities for the place that they live.
Obviously, that you talked about how you kind of the situation that you grew up in, and you talked a little bit about your past. Why do you think elections? See, these guys, some of them are re-standing for election. You'll know all about that. Two of them have decided that they don't want to. They're abandoning the third. I've got to stop saying that. Two of them have decided to move on with it.
My heart.
See, I know. I don't need you crying or sneezing or singing.
Yeah, don't worry.
But obviously, elections are important and voting's important.
Yes.
What would you say to anybody that was thinking about it? We've talked a little bit about it. From your point of view, though, why is it important?
Because it's about that representation, and every vote is important.
Yeah.
And there's different sort of ways to think about it, but for me, I always think about the fact of I represent people who have been in the care system. I represent people who come from that more deprived background. So my vote is to ensure that actually we get that representation in there. For other people, and there's other ways of looking at it, but people that I know also often think about the person whose vote that they would like to cancel, and using their vote as a way of
countermeasure,
negating that vote. And for me, that's also really important, because if you think about some of the people that are in politics and surround themselves in politics, and some of the rhetoric that you can sometimes hear, which is negative and just vile, actually that's just as important, voting for what you believe in, as well as voting to ensure that
what you don't believe in doesn't get passed.
Yeah, and it's a really important sort of balance.
It's interesting you say that, because I often think that some people wouldn't have said that. You know, you often think that your politics, you vote for the person that you want in, but you're right. There's a political aspect. It's like a giant game of chess in elements. You've got to figure out the pieces and what pieces you prioritise.
Yeah,
don't you?
absolutely.
So yeah, that's quite interesting to make sure that you are. Because you've got to be voting in order to enact change. You know, you've got to be voting in order. I said this earlier to the guys. In order to criticise a system, you need to be a part of that system to fully understand it. To be able, if you know, you can't turn around and say, "I don't like the way this is being run."
Yeah.
If you've never turned around and had any input into it and didn't decide it was going to be done, you can dislike it. But if you're not going to enact change or you're not going to do something, it's just hot air, isn't it?
And it's often the communities that need change most that then don't vote.
Right.
Because there's a belief that nothing will ever change. Well, nothing won't ever change if those people then don't vote.
Yeah. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Absolutely, yeah.
Because apathy, and I get it, I completely get it. If you're struggling with the fact that you're living in damp conditions, you don't exactly know how you're going to get food on the table over the next 2 weeks, voting, is that really a priority in your head?
Yeah.
But actually, that's exactly when voting should be a priority, is in those circumstances, because the only way to get effective change is by mobilisation.
Yeah. Wow, it's pretty deep for this one. No, that's important. And obviously, when would be the next election for Middlesbrough? Obviously, there are political positions. I assume that your office, those positions get voted in, don't they?
Yeah. So my position gets voted in, and then from that, I'm then able to pull in who I would like, essentially.
Yeah.
From that into the executive, which is a different system to some of the other places. The other places, the councillors vote for each of the individual ones after the election from the people.
So you have control really over your councillors and your choice. So
which is
so it's about making the decision at the top, and then you get you have a bit of autonomy over your members.
Absolutely. And that's really, really important. But 2027 is the next date.
Right. So there's still time to hopefully get things done that you want to get done and continue with all that. What would you say to anybody that's not in relation to your office, but in relation to anybody thinking about being a candidate to any kind of political position? Because these guys are going 2 steps away, so we're going to have new candidates. We're going to have people that are sat there that are watching this thinking, should I bother being a candidate? What's in it? What would I do it for? What would you say to anybody that's considering it?
So you should absolutely do it. So even if you don't win, the experience is really important, and the experience of listening to people and understanding different viewpoints and ensuring that people are heard, even if you're not successful at the end, that bit is so crucial. Some people really, really enjoy the process. For me, I think sometimes it's one of the best parts of it is the campaign.
Right.
The bit that comes afterwards is great, but that part where you're doing the most intensive piece of communication and listening is incredibly important, and you condense so many hours of otherwise like walkabouts or surgeries into just a few weeks.
Yes.
And that's crucial.
Quite intense, quite busy.
Yeah.
But I imagine the amount of people that you get to meet from doing that. We always say to our presidents-elect whenever they're going through this process is get out and talk to people.
Yeah.
Because that's the people that you want. You need to have that kind of connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
In order for them to understand how you are or who you are and what you stand for, you need to speak to people.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing with you,
No,
but on a bigger scale.
Yeah, and I think it's regardless of what the position is, just make sure that you're doing it with the sort of the right intent. You're going into it with your eyes open, and you're ensuring that you almost pick the voices as you're going through the campaign that you then want to champion.
Yeah.
Because you could start your campaign with a mindset about wanting to achieve one thing, but actually don't be fixed on it, because after you listen to all the people and you go through the campaign, you might end up changing what your focus needs to be, because what you think in your own mind might not reflect the needs of the community or the people you wish to represent. So you have to have that flexibility.
You've got to allow for a bit of organic growth.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So as it moves through, you can kind of go, oh, well, actually, the thing that I thought was an issue has changed, just even if it's just changed slight tact. It's just a case of, we just need to reposition ourselves on this. And you'd only get through that through talking to people and learning about them and understanding them.
Yeah, and don't stop at anger. So if someone presents in anger, continue through, because it's really important that you get past what the anger is until you get to the root cause of why they feel that way.
Because anger, I imagine it's an effect, isn't it? It's a symptom.
Yeah, it's a symptom of
the frustration or whatever it is that's going on. But that must be quite difficult. Have you had that before, where you've had people?
Not to understand.
Lots. Yeah.
Sorry,
I told you it was going to be more infrequent.
So I joined the Labour Party during the EU referendum. I often question decisions in my life, and that's one I question quite regularly.
Very intense time.
Very intense time. But for me, it was really important because I could see what was happening, the way that people were spreading misinformation. For me, that was quite a crucial issue. But I spoke to lots of angry people. Yeah. And ultimately, when you sort of drive down into it, a lot of the stuff is about that scarcity of resource. So because people have a deficit in their own lives or a deficit in their family that they can't meet because they don't just have the means to be able to fix it, and they're being presented an answer or an option that might not be logical, it might not be the real thing that's causing it, but because it's something that they've seen or someone that they can visualise, that then translates, and then they get angry about that instead of actually the real issue is a class system or the lack of opportunity for them, and that becomes a focus, which is wrong. As my wife would say, it's impossible to have a proper argument with me, and she's tried many times, and it's just because I have that demeanour, because I think because I've lived quite a challenging life at times. For me, a lot of it's words, and a lot of it won't touch the sides. But I don't like the impact that it has on others, and I don't like. I especially don't like, and I've seen it before. I've been out with Philippa when Philippa was campaigning, and the treatment that sometimes gets targeted towards her, women in general. I really dislike that in politics. I think that is one of the most vile things that exists.
It needs to be changed.
It needs to be changed, because actually some of the people that react that way react based on gender and don't react the same way if I then appear at the door. And I think that isn't about Philippa's politics or any woman's politics. I think that's a different issue entirely.
Yeah, it's a personal issue that needs to be readdressed.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the political thing that's actually going on, the discourse.
It's
about them going, well, you're that, and that's not what I want to associate with, or whatever the reason would be.
And I'm okay with political discourse, I'm okay with policy difference, I'm okay with any of that. But if it's just personal or just hate, I'm not engaged in that.
What kind of developments are we looking at in the future? I know this is getting a little bit more into kind of your field. What are we looking at with Middlesbrough? And what can we do to make it safer and better for students? Because the university is a big part of Middlesbrough, as we know. You know, it's a massive employer. It's got a huge footprint on the actual town itself.
So part of the local plan that will go through in the next couple of months, hopefully, so full council providing. One of the things that we've got into that is we've started to sort of quarter up the town centre, because it's really important that people know what an area is and what it's for. And it helps us then to be able to coordinate resources appropriately. We've got some quite big developments coming. The Central Library's just about to be finished, which is really exciting.
Great.
There's going to be a phase 2 of Livewell in the centre, and that will probably see more resources coming out of James Cooke and being provided in the Cleveland Centre, which actually then provides a better level of access without having to go into a hospital environment, which is more for emergency and other sort of surgery. So some of that lower level stuff can be then ported over there. New Middlesbrough Museum, which will be really exciting for Stewart's Park, but we haven't got much detail on that we could share yet. And then the Southland Centre for me is really, really key. That'll be absolutely amazing when we finish that. It'll be a real boost for East Middlesbrough that has seen very little in the way of investment for a very long time. And the council are going to further rationalise all the buildings, and we're going to split ourselves into 4 and then move north, east, south, west.
For the quarters of the...
So the town centre will be quartered, but then we'll have like a north team, an east team, a west team and a south team, in order to try and make sure that actually there's more of a much more local focus. So if I think about north, and you've got places like Newport Central and Linthorpe in some aspects, there's very different problems there to what there is in the south. And the problems that they face in the south tend to be clustered together and similar in some ways. So the teams need to just have that focus. So I want the council officers to almost be a regular face, a regular name, so that people get to know them, get to trust them, and then we're able to deal with problems much quicker. And allowing them to have that focus means that they're not dealing with one family who might be in crisis in Berwick Hills, and then that same person's then going over to Acklam to deal with a family in crisis. They'll be able to deal with people and be able to learn and go into the schools, be able to do it much more effectively. And as part of that, we're going to condense some of the different services that are currently satellited all over the place, and they'll be much more focused.
So it's given more focal points, a much more hands-on approach, a much more local kind of approach. So you're bringing people back to go, this is the area that you're going to be dealing with. You'll get to know the people will get to know you, to reinforce the strength in the community. That's kind of using your offices like the mortar and the cement to keep kind of binding together to make sure it all works.
And if you're a charity that works in that area and you want to also have a desk in that place, absolutely fine, come along, we'll give you that. And it'll also just be a place that residents can then go and feel like there's a lot more invested in them because they've got that relationship with the staff.
Yeah, they'll feel they're not being pushed. They'll feel that somebody cares.
Yeah, that's really important.
And I think if you're in a position where you are a little bit lost, or you are a little bit, you feel that you're not getting touched, have the feeling that somebody does care. It make a massive difference, because it changes how you view your area, how you view your neighbours, how you view the people, because you realise that if somebody cares about you in that area, they care about the community. And because you are part of the community. That you need to be part of it. Yeah,
it's also about that opportunistic sort of engagement at times. So Newport, for example, has a big sports hall. We do lots of football in there. But actually, if someone just happens to leave the sports hall, they're not feeling too good, they're a bit upset, well, actually, the member of staff there will be able to engage them and say, "You all right, what's wrong?" And then guide them to support. That person would never normally just walk into a council building and say, "I'm really struggling with this, I need debt advice, I need housing advice." But by having that build-up and that familiar face, it doesn't matter if you're going for football or for a knitting class, it's about that opportunistic engagement as well.
So it becomes less of an event, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because some people are reticent, they don't want to, like you said just then, you don't want to necessarily have to go to an office somewhere that you don't know to talk about your debt issues.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got somewhere local, it's about it becoming less of a big deal, and it's just part of what you're doing, and part of, like you said, I played football there, I'll go and have a chat with them about this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important. It's really powerful.
That sounds really, really good. I am going to touch on one thing.
Yep.
And only because it was announced recently, and obviously I like to keep abreast of what's going on in Middlesbrough. Let's talk about the cycle lane, Chris.
Can't wait. So finally going, if the clock is ticking now on the 3 months where we have to do the procurement work to assign the person who's going to rip it out. For me, it was when I was a councillor for Newport Ward, which half has the cycle lane.
Yeah.
It was a real issue that I campaigned against at the time when I was a councillor, because I could see what was happening to the businesses, and the way that the rhetoric was around the businesses, that if they don't like the cycle lane, they can just move.
Yeah, it was like it or lump it, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that was not the right attitude. That's not the way to do it. The problem we now have is, as long as that cycle lane remains, no other schemes will be taken seriously at all. Because there's one really bad one in the middle of the town centre, and it's to the detriment of all further schemes in other areas, which actually cycling's a really, really important factor of trying to get people more active.
I bike into work. I'll be honest with you, I'm probably one of the few people that currently uses the cycle lane, but that's just because I happen to bike from the top of Linthorpe down through. But yeah, for me, cycling is really important, and there are a lot of cycle routes in Middlesbrough that I think people aren't aware of as well. You know, there's ways through like the park. Albert Park there's a clearer way through there now as well, that you can go around the backside if you didn't need to go around down Linthorpe Road. So there is things that you can do. We have got some questions from some of our students. If we'd like to move on to them, are you okay with me doing
absolutely.
that? I say it as though I'm asking you dead nicely, but obviously I'm going to ask you them anyway. So these have been sent in from different students. Obviously, some of these areas we might have covered, but we'll just go over them anyway. For the sake of actually doing them on the podcast, that they've been tweaked a little bit or edited just to make them flow a little bit easier.
So, not on my cabinet, but we do have, for the first time ever in Middlesbrough's history, the first Black African councillor, who I'm proud to say is in my group. I actually ran with John when I was originally running to be a councillor, and sadly, John didn't make it. He was not far off on the votes, but he just didn't make it into the first. So it's a shame actually, but it's nice to see John run again, because actually he represents Newport, and Newport is a diverse community and deserves to have a diverse representation as well.
I think sometimes particularly diverse communities feel that they've got better representation, don't they? They feel that they've got somebody that understands them. Which is important. You know, again, it's about making that connection, isn't it?
So the first thing that we did was the free school meals auto-enrolment. So that means that if you're in Middlesbrough, you don't have to apply for free school meals. It's an automatic process.
Wow.
So that lifted 700 children straight into free school meals. That saves families £400 per year per child. And it also gives the schools, I think, over £1 million in funding.
Wow.
And all of that they were already entitled to, but they weren't receiving because it was reliant on the parent filling out the form, knowing what to do, and that's not fair. So we've managed to automate that process, which was not to the not everyone was agreeing with that. We got threatened by DWP at one point.
Oh, right.
Who were not very happy. But
what about the fact that they were auto-enrolled?
Yeah, that we were auto-enrolling it. But we did it anyway.
That's good. I like that.
Because it's important.
Yeah.
Because it lifts families out of poverty. The next thing we're looking at is there is £122 million of unclaimed benefits in Middlesbrough. So what can we do to then get the rest?
So 122
million
of unclaimed benefits.
Unclaimed benefits. So actually, there's a lot more money that should be flowing through Middlesbrough that isn't flowing from Middlesbrough. So we need to work out what we do to make people access that. The last thing is around housing. Housing is one of my big priorities for this year and my next year as well. And it's not just about building housing, because we're doing that quite well. We build 400 houses a year on average, at least. What we need to do is sort out the housing which is in disrepair, or the housing that's not in a good state. We have more empty homes than our housing waiting list. So we have 2,000 empty homes. Our housing waiting list is 1,700. So if all of them were put into use, that would instantly close that list.
But they're not fit for purpose.
But they're not fit for purpose. Yeah. They're empty, and we need to deal with that. So we'll start to. So the council doesn't have a housing department. It doesn't have a housing lead, and that always shocks people.
When you're building so much and there's so much to do, you'd expect there to be somebody that would kind of...
So we encourage and enable developers. We don't do it ourselves, and that's one of the really difficult things. And it links to everything. For me, housing's one of the fundamental things that almost enables poverty and keeps people locked in poverty. Because if you look at somewhere like Brambles Farm, they have 6 times the national average in respiratory rate issues. And a lot of that comes down to poor quality housing. Yeah. And you're not able to get a job, you're not able to properly get yourself educated if you're not able to live in your own home without facing respiratory issues. Yeah. So if we don't get housing sorted, we can't then help people to get themselves out of poverty via education, employment or training. So it's important that we get that bit right.
You're looking at the root causes there, aren't you?
Yeah, so yeah.
Change it at the base, and then everything kind of flows.
And then everything else flows. So yeah, housing. It's fundamental. So happy to engage with anyone at any time. And I think one of the things that's important is we've just released the Community Cohesion Fund, which was given to us through the government. But actually, we spent a lot longer than everywhere else developing it, because we didn't develop it. Right. What we did is we got community groups, we got people that were affected, the uni were part of the process, the police were part of the process, and we let everyone else decide what was important and how we should spend that money. And actually, that's then come up with a much better way of trying to get that money out there. For me, there's a big thing about, and it goes back to the scarcity of resource point, we can't just target the areas of central Middlesbrough where the riots did the most damage. Yeah. We need to go out into the estates and understand why did someone feel the need from that estate to go into the centre of Middlesbrough and cause that issue. Yeah. And it's about tackling all of it at the same time. So we're using We Are Middlesbrough as a bit of a platform to be able to get that stuff done, to champion the different communities that we host here in Middlesbrough and the different communities that call this place home, as well as showcase all the positives that can be achieved if you work hard and study normally. So that will be an ongoing project. So we'll continue to fund We Are Middlesbrough forever. Right. For as long as I'm here. But using the money that we've got as a Kickstarter so that community groups can get engaged. And one of the really important parts to it all will be the engagement with schools. Because from an early age, if you go into any school, the amount of cohesion that exists within the classroom is far higher. And actually, we need to almost use the children to teach the adults a bit more that about how to get along. Understanding. Tolerance, understanding. Yeah. Acceptance, because for them, it's not about race, creed, or religion. That's my mate. I know him. Yes. He lent me 20p. He's got my favourite pen. He's got my favourite pen. He's really good at tag. That's something that we need to get across, because actually some of the greatest pieces of community cohesion exist within our primary schools. Yeah. And we need to amplify that and showcase it much more than we do. So it took us a while to create that, but it was important that we actually led that by the community. Yeah. So we've had great help from lots of different community groups. But that's been launched now, so that's available on the council website. Spend in the independent shops and the independent businesses is a good way as a starter, but also volunteer in the local communities. There's plenty of volunteering options. MVDA have a website dedicated to how you can volunteer and where you can go and what activities are available.
Right.
There's also programs available through my office. We'll be able to guide people if they need it. We run not apprenticeships, but we run work experience for people. Should they want to get involved and see how the decision making happens. That's really important that people understand that process. I think part of it is there will just be coming and going of different shops, and I think what would be really good is if no one sort of knee-jerked every time someone threatened to close. If we look at something like Cineworld, as for anyone who's been in there recently, has lacked investment for a significant amount of time. The building's not in a great state. Odeon have now agreed to take it on, and that'll be an Odeon Deluxe, which will see significant investment. And actually, that's a better option than just continuing as we were. So sometimes with change, it doesn't just have to be scary, it can be opportunity. The way that we'll structure the town centre will really help to give businesses a bit of assurance around what's going to happen and where, because for the longest time there has been no real long-term planning, which means that they don't quite know what's going to happen and where. And the more that we can do to shrink some of the retail space, the better. So for example, the Cleveland Centre, the council own it, so we can afford to be more tactful on some of the choices that we make. So if we reduce the amount of retail space in there and put more health stuff in there and take some of the empty units and convert them to employment facilities or whatever, then actually that's more retail space that's going to be condensed into other places. It means that less empty shops will exist in other places because we've taken the hit. And then stuff like Stack, which has been ridiculously popular, stuff like that's a good footfall creator.
Because that's a good example of development in that area, isn't it, as well, considering what was there before. I mean, I've obviously been in Middlesbrough a lot. You've seen it change over the years, and it's evolved, and there's been nightclubs and things have happened. Obviously, there's been regeneration on the train station itself, which has been ongoing. It feels like it's been ongoing forever, because it has been a lot of years, but it is getting there, and it has made massive differences. So I think Stack's definitely something, when people talk about the regeneration, that's been brought in, and that seems to be doing really, really well.
But we just need to make sure that we formalise it, but we also need to condense it. So, for example, when you start walking past the courts on Corporation Road, you've got that long stretch, and then you've got a couple of shops right at the end. Well, actually, what can we do to bring them more into the centre so that they feel all the footfall that the other shops are feeling, rather than it being so segregated and just siloed. It needs to make sense, because what we've seen with places like Teesside Park is people will go, park up, go to the shop, and some people then get back in the car, drive to the next section, get out and go to the shop. And actually that convenience factor is what works for them, but what works for us is we need people to have longer stays and longer experiences, so more about leisure, more about like good food and drink and events. And if we can corner that market, then actually we'll get people into those shops, because they'll be around town for longer, doing those different activities, which is important. Which is why it's important that in the budget we've put in the events team again with a budget, because
so they can actually do things.
So they can actually do things and animate the town centre. Because we own some of the units now, so we have deliberately left some of our own shops empty, because the right offer didn't come along.
Right.
So if I don't know, we have Bazaar, which is really, really good. If in the unit next to it, someone wanted to create Bazaar 2, which was almost exactly the same but would compete, we would just say, no, we'll keep that empty until another offer comes along. Not every other property owner would do that, because it's a massive risk.
Yes, you are, because you're refusing. Well, you're just refusing money, aren't you?
Yeah, we're turning money down.
Kind of going, I don't want that. But then you're securing the future of not just Bazaar, but for other people. So you've got greater variety.
It's that curation, and it's about not just being knee-jerk and jumping every time someone comes to us with money and an offer. It's about that slow, methodical, calm. Okay, but is that right for everyone else? And doing that proper assessment of it. I think there will at some point be a need for demolition. but not at this stage. And I think it's about choosing when the time's right, but also not just scaring the market off.
So yeah, making the right decisions at the right time without everybody running in terror.
Yeah. And it's also about making sure that you have the necessary funds to back it up, because actually we see it all the time where buildings will stand empty because people know that they could probably afford to take it down, but they have then no money to develop on it.
Right.
And we don't want to do that. They'll just become eyesore sites. So,
you just end with an empty lot.
It's making sure you have the right plan and that we have the necessary funds to be able to do it. So one of the things I would encourage is report them to the licensing authority that's on the back of the taxi normally. A lot of them are registered in different places, but hopefully legislation will start to change that. One of the things that I think is being explored at the minute is around they will not allow you to insure a vehicle unless the licence is of the authority. And I think some of those changes need to happen because actually it gives greater local accountability for those taxi drivers. We've seen Uber come, and Uber are really, really good. And what we'll see is that a lot of the plates will start to become Middlesbrough plates because they started in Newcastle was the closest one. So a lot of Newcastle plates appeared because they were funneling it through. But we'll start to see them switch over as well. And it's really important that we get that local licensing aspect because it just helps for a range of reasons, and the accountability is so much higher when it's more local. So get in touch. Get in touch with us. I never promise anyone anything.
Because if you did, we'll write
rule
it down.
one. But actually, the council is, among its weird and wonderful things that it does, we have a health determinants research collaboration with the university actually.
Right.
And it's a £5 million funding pot that we can do to do research projects and do different things, and it is about improving health outcomes. And actually some of the university researchers have done a piece recently on educational psychology and doing it about parents first. So instead of sitting down with the child, they actually got the parents and sat down with the parents and looked at some of the stuff that they were experiencing, some of the stresses, because one of the things that the children often struggle with is, yes, they will go to the educational psychologist, they'll be able to talk about some of the stuff, but if they're going home to a negative environment or an environment that is a bit more chaotic, then they're just coming back the next week and having to go through the same process. So actually doing the more holistic version and helping the families is really important. And it's now been absolutely backed up through the health determinants research collaboration, through the university and through the council working together. A lot of that research is now public and is out there for people to be able to use themselves, but it helps us as a council work on what our approach should be from a proper researched background, but also from a point of collaboration with the university, which is crucial.
There is a strong connection between the university.
There is, and it's very strange because it's more of an individual basis. So public health will have a relationship with X department or X person, and then that'll be really strong. And we all have our individual ties, but no, we'd love to do more with the university.
Great. The university and the SU, I'm sure, would be all part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. The first 2 years I've had to do probably the most wide range of cuts that a council has probably seen for a very long time.
Right.
In order to get us to the point when we can now reinvest in services for people.
Was that quite difficult then, going through that process?
Horrible.
Because you're affecting people's lives, aren't you?
You're affecting people's lives. Because I was a councillor, I know a lot of people by name that we made redundant.
Yeah.
It's quite a personal process. If you're someone like me who actually spends some time getting to know all the staff, it actually hurts doing that sort of thing. But we had to do it because otherwise everyone loses the job if we go belly up. So it's about understanding that dynamic between the needs of one person or a couple of people versus the needs of a whole town. Yeah. But now we're getting through that. It's quite exciting. So we're just about to start forming a town board, which will pull in partners like the university, like the colleges, and actually stop it just being about finances, stop it being about one organisation being in charge, and about, okay, what can we do to fundamentally help the town?
Chris, thank you very, very much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you. Thanks, guys, for joining me on this edition of our TUSU podcast. We'll be back again next time. Catch you all later.